for anyone I haven't welcomed yet, welcome again to the Earth Day Eve Experiment Share. I'm joining you from Paris, France. If anyone feels like writing in the chat where they're from, it's always fun and exciting to see all the different places we have joining from. And a couple of things just to try and get the most out of the session. I'll try and spotlight whoever's screen is speaking so that they should appear big, but feel free to toggle between speaker view and gallery view depending on what you're trying to look at, who you're trying to look at, anything like that. If anything goes wrong, like things don't always go perfect, especially when I'm presenting something myself, feel free to turn on your microphone and shout if something doesn't seem right, because it's better than letting one of us go along for 5 or 10 minutes when you can't see what we're doing. So don't be shy about any of that. Also, for anyone who's new here, because there's a bunch of familiar faces, but always new faces, we're like the goal of these experiment shares is to share ideas with other educators and to encourage people to use them as much as possible. So whenever possible, try and explain it with the lowest entry barrier so it's easier for other people to put things in place. And when you're watching other people's experiments, try and think of not only how you could do it yourself or how it could be useful for your own teaching, but a lot of us in this session have a lot of experience, and getting feedback on some of my own favorite experiments from a group of experts has always been a really useful useful experience. So please, no one be shy to show yourself and to talk. As I mentioned in the email, I encourage everyone to keep your cameras on because it's fun, like seeing people we present. But if anyone's shy and prefers not to, don't feel you have to. So with that being said, looking at the order, which I don't think I sent to people ahead of time because I was kind of putting everything in place as we went. I think Gordana should be up next in Serbia, then Astrinos in Greece, then Gina, Guillaume, and Xavier, who are joining us from Portugal, France, and Spain. And people who have been to a number of these sessions before will remember Julia from Italy. They're members of the European Geosciences Union, and they're field officers that when they present, hopefully they'll explain a little bit and give links that like I'll email them to everyone afterwards for some of their great resources. Some of them will be familiar to you guys who've been along for some of the experiment shares because Julia's already shared it, but it's always good to share it again because there's some great stuff there. And then we'll be finishing off with my friend RC, who's joining us from the Canada Agriculture and Food Museum in Canada, where I was actually briefly a teacher in residence for 2 or 3 weeks a couple of years ago. So with all that being said, I'm going to stop talking so we get to the more interesting part. It looks like Gordana might have disconnected, in which case we'll skip ahead to Astrinos and then get back to Gordana when she's back here. Astrinos, are you okay with us turning you over for the next one, or turning over to you for the next one?
Yes, for sure.
Excellent. And Astrinos is the only person now who has been at every single experiment share, including the first monthly one where I held from his lab in Crete, where he's joining us now. So it's always a pleasure to have you again. Welcome back, Astrinos, and thank you again.
Thank you for having me tonight, Michael. I'm very happy to be with this great company of colleagues. Well, I'm going to present 2 different projects. I will not need a lot of time. My first project is a model of a Quake alarm. It actually uses a microcontroller, but it is not needed because I will show it. It's this device. Actually, it is an inertial switch. I have 2 eye hooks here and a long screw with something heavy like this ball. And it is supposed to detect primary waves which shake the ground horizontally. So for in order to protect our students, there is a signal. For sure, you can only have this the two eye hooks, just the screw, this ball, and maybe a battery, an LED, and a buzzer. That will be enough. You don't need a microcontroller. But for my project, for example, if I just move it, if there is some vibration, I have a signal. The red light means go under your desks, and green is just evacuate. Of course, if you only use a battery, the eye hooks, and the simplest setup, you can only have something like an earthquake detection. Second project, well, I think I have to disconnect this. The second project is something that we are doing with Science on Stage Europe. It is sustainability development goals in education. And my proposal was something regarding adopt a tree. As you can see here, because we need to raise awareness to our students and make them care about the environment, care about the trees, the forests, which face a lot of challenges with climate change. And what is really exciting about this is that I just use an electrode. I use two same metal electrodes, so it's not some kind of battery. It's not like a potato battery or a lemon battery. I use this needle for ground, and then I have a clothespin attached to some point of the plant, and this goes to a multimeter. This is the easiest way. And of course, if you can, if you use a time-lapse software and your web camera, you can make it into a very simple and low-cost data logger. So as you can see, of course, I don't know how to mirror my, but here.
Well, we see it straight. It's just mirrored for you. Like, so it's reading the right way around for us. Okay. As you can see here, we have a voltage which is it is up to a few hundred millivolts. Usually when our plant, our tree is happy, this voltage, which is caused by the pH difference between the soil and the sap in the trunk, it should be negative, maybe minus 200 millivolts. When it is close to zero, or it is positive, that means that either our plant is not happy, or it faces some different conditions. Like, for example, it is dark and transpiration might be reduced, or might be even higher because of high temperature and low humidity. It depends. This is a research project. All the material will be uploaded on Science on Stage Europe site, so you can download and comment on everything. Well, I think this is enough. You just feel free to contact me if you need anything, any more information, and the teaching unit or the lesson plans. Well, that's from me. Thank you. That's great. Thank you, Astrinos. And anyone jump in if you have questions. I have one or two questions, so I'll start with that, but please feel free to jump in, anyone else who has questions. So I was wondering, when you've shown me this before, and you said the reading is usually much less than 100 milliamps, but here it's 200 milliamps. So what did you do to stress this plant so much?
Now it's quite dark in here. The fluorescent lamps are not enough for photosynthesis. The soil, because I had to move it from my house, the soil is pretty dry. So there's not the salts and nutrients in the soil are not have not created enough ions for and we don't have enough transpiration, because everything here is almost ideal for this plant to go to sleep.
And does anyone else have any questions for Astrinos?
I think Paul has. We can actually use the voltage, but we need a special device. We have to exploit even quantum tunneling effect to charge a battery, and up to 1.1 volts, because although we might have, for example, 500 millivolts, the current is not sufficient to power any sensor. So we have to use this energy to charge a battery and wake it up, wake the circuit up when it is considered to have sufficient energy to power a sensor. So it might be just once a day or once every week, but the power that we now receive from trees is already considered to be a renewable energy source. So maybe one day we might go to a forest and charge our mobiles, or I don't know what.
I have a question quickly. The probe that's on the plant, is it on a leaf, or is it on the stem, or is it attached to something that's in the stem? I can't quite see.
Well, you can have voltage, but for different reasons, even if you put 2 electrodes on different parts of the plant. It's a good idea to put the electrode near, for example, at where the leaf starts, here at the stem. It depends, but for the trees that I have outside my laboratory, I cannot have electrodes on the leaves, because the last electrode is now connected for long before Christmas, and it's still there, and I still have readings. So it wouldn't be the same. I don't know, the leaf would have gone dry and...
Very interesting, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, on Astrinos, I meant to ask earlier, but the links that you mentioned, when we see some of the next presentations, if you have them handy, could you add them to the chat for anyone who wants to look them up and go further? And I'll add them to the descriptions that I emailed to everyone sometime after the session.
Okay. Last night it was the deadline to upload all the material, so at exactly midnight everything was uploaded. Okay, you know, we're Greeks, so last minute is our cup of tea. And I'm not sure if I can, because I have made some changes, so I need the feedback. I think I can try to upload, but maybe...
Well, if things aren't ready yet, don't worry. I'll wait until I send out a link to the recording to everyone who signed up. And I'm not Greek, but I'm pretty slow on things like that. So it'll be at least a week until I send out the recording.
Okay, so I will have provided the link by then.
Okay, perfect. And anyone else who has links that are relevant to anything they show or anything else you want to share, just send them to me and I'll put them all in the document that I sent out to everyone afterwards, so that they can get at any of the detailed stuff that they need to try and repeat some of these experiments. So thank you again, Astrinos. I don't think Gordana got back yet, so.
Hello everyone, I am Aida Lumshi from Albania, one of the trainers of the British Council, and in my school, in reality I am a headmaster of the school, and in the other part the trainer about Microbit. In the school I implement some experiments, and one experiment is that I will show today. The experiment is related with the some problems that are related with the real life in the summer season, in fact, because we all go to the summer vacations, but one of our fears is that our plant can dry out, and the purpose is that we can watering or planting that plant automatically that are related with the pump that are related and function when the soil is dry out, activate the microbit, in fact, and this pump give the water in the plant, and the plant can survive during the summer seasons. This is the purpose that we need to plant it all the product in agriculture, in fact when the summer season is very dry, and this is the process that help our farmers for agriculture land as a model when the drought is not enough to grow plants. If I can access to the share the screen, in fact I would like to share my screen to see the video, if it's possible.
Perfect. Yeah, the permission should be open for you to do that. So go right ahead. That sounds great.
Yeah. Yeah. This is an experiment. The microbit is connected with the pump. The pump dry the plant at the moment when the soil is very dry, and we can help to survive our plant in our school during the summer seasons, or we are holidays, in fact, and this is the experiments.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's quite relevant. I know a lot of us end up, like I personally travel a lot, and I have a lot of plants I've planted on my balcony, and so it's always a problem trying to figure it out.
If you have any question, I am waiting to respond the questions or the participants' questions.
So if anyone has any questions or any feedback or ideas for Aida, please let her know. Okay, and it doesn't look like anyone has anything to say, but that was great. Thanks for starting things off, Aida. And I believe, I know that you're the first one from Albania presenting at the experiment share. So it's great that you're along. We've had a couple of teachers joining to watch before, but if you can invite more people from Albania, that'd be great. We'll move on to the EGU field officers, if that's okay, Xavier, Gina, and Guillaume. Should I spotlight all three of you or spotlight one of you for now, or how do you guys want to start?
I will be controlling the presentation, and we will speaking one after the other. So we can start now.
Perfect. Yes, yes, and
Okay.
and thank you again. It's great to have all three of you joining us.
Okay. So I'll share my screen.
Okay.
Sorry. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes, we can see it.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Xavier. You already see the presentation. So we are field officers. My name is Gina, and I'm the field officer for Portugal, the EGU field officer for Portugal. Xavier, Guillaume, and I will present some activities, but first I will introduce some of our program, field officer program, and to give you some informations that you can use in your classrooms about our activities and about the website where we can find all these activities. So please, Xavier. So, so far the Geoscience Education Field Officers team includes 4 EGU field officers and, go back, thank you, and 2 more members from Morocco and India. The last members, the Yamin and Baskar, are supported by the International Union of Geological Sciences and International Geoscience Education Organization. The field officers are geoscience teachers in service or retired from secondary or higher school and are supported by some national colleagues. The material provided by Earth Learning Idea website and also by the EGU Committee on Education. The main goal of this international program is providing professional development for school teachers and future teachers from primary to secondary schools in teaching the elements of the geoscience appropriate for their teaching curriculum through interactive workshops. So the target are teachers of science and geography who have some geoscience in their curricula, but who have poor geoscience backgrounds and receive no training in geoscience teacher. In this map, you can see the distribution of the current field officers. And the next map, Xavier, please. You can see the future field officers. So next month, we will form another more 13 members all around the world, 7 from Europe, Albania. Aida, you will have a field officer from Albania, Estonia, Germany, Greece, Romania, Turkey, and United Kingdom, and 6 beyond Europe, Burkina Faso, Chile, Colombia, India, Malaysia, and Togo. So we will have 1 field officer for each country, except India that will have 2 field officers, 1 in the north and 1 in south because of its dimension. The extending of the program over future years will allow the initiative to reach more teachers and schools across the world and to increase international geoscience training network. Xavier? So about the workshops, the Earth Science Education workshops offered by field officers are based on the 18 years experience of the Earth Science Education Unit in the United Kingdom and are based on practical, hands-on, interactive teaching materials and uses approaches designed to develop critical thinking skills, knowledge, and understanding. The practical activities are always simple and overall time speedy. The apparatus and materials used are not expensive and are easily available in normal school classrooms or science labs. The workshop subjects include geoscience curricular content such as plate tectonics, rock cycles, seismology, timescale and history of Earth, and volcanology. But field officers are also able to promote the geopark training courses. Xavier, thank you. Here you can see some pictures from our workshops. Since May 2019, field officers completed more than 40 national workshops. Some performed face-to-face and others online because of COVID pandemic that involved more than 800 workshop participants. Xavier, thank you. As I said before, field officers are supported by the Earth Learning Idea website, where more than 380 teaching activities and several explanatory videos are published in a range of language. Every two weeks, a new activity is published, and the activities are listed by alphabetic order or by category, such as Earth as a system, Earth in space, evolution of life, geological time, and others, in a total of 10 categories. Xavier? Thank you. For each activity, a protocol is available where you can find all information needed to develop the activity. For example, the title, the subtitle, the topic, the age range of students, the time needed to complete the activity, the students' learning outcomes, the resources lists, or even following up the activity. And you will also be able to follow the Earth Learning Idea website on social networks such as the Facebook page and also on Twitter. Here you can find links. Today we will present these 4 activities. So the Himalaya in 30 seconds, the space within, the interpret Earth temperature from simulated deep sea and ice cores, and the oxygen isotope suite simulation. The first activity will be presented by me, the Himalayas in 30 seconds. So I will making a miniature fold mountain range in an empty box. I will present the material needed. So you need a simple plastic box. This is a Ferrero Rocher chocolate box. And we can eat the chocolate, and then we can use this with our students. We will need some sand, so dry sand. We will need also flour or any powder of contrasting color to the sand, a spoon, and also a piece of wood or other resistant material to fit into the plastic box. I already show you. Now I move my camera to the experimental model.
I think we have lost connection with Gina, and maybe I can present the next experience. I don't know if it's okay with Michael.
Yeah, with me that sounds great. And then hopefully she'll come back at some point, and we'll skip back to her whenever it makes sense.
Yeah. Anyway, we have a video about the experience that Gina was presenting, but it's better if she can join us again. So I will try to present an activity that is called Space Within, and it's about porosity of sediments. You should take this in the context of exploring rocks. It's a part of a very large sequence of activities that are called Spot That Rock or Rock Detective. And the students, a concept that is new for them is probably porosity of a sediment. When they learn what is a sediment, and they learn that there are particles like this marble here. There are particles, and for this experiment, I have here, which is very simple. I have here a beaker that is 500 milliliters or cubic centimeters, which is full of marbles. My first question to the students, for young students especially, is what would you say? This beaker is empty or full? And they would say that when they say the marbles, they say it's full of marbles. But there's something else, there's something more inside this beaker, which is air in this case. And the relationship between the solid and the gas space volume is what we call porosity. And if I ask you, may I ask you a question? What would you say if you can, of course, you can work with maths. If you ask your students, if I ask to you, what do you think is the porosity of this rock here? This is full of marbles. What would you say? Which percentage would you say? I will give you 1 minute, just 1 minute to write it in the chat, if possible. So please write your prediction about the porosity of this. All the marbles are the same size. Okay.
Hello.
Hello,
Sorry,
Gina.
I lost my connection.
Yes, I'm doing my experience, and when I finish, you show
perfect.
your Himalayas. Is it okay?
It's perfect.
So
Thank you,
I can read 50%, 70%, 35%. You're good students, but usually students in the classroom, especially young students, make predictions like 20%, 15%, or even less, because they see this is full of marbles. So maybe I don't know why I'm not in. Okay, so I close the chat for me. So how could I test this? I have this beaker of 500 cubic centimeters or milliliters, and I also have here all the materials. You can see that in this case, because we run our workshops across our country, we have to travel, and we don't use glass material but plastic material, which is more easy, but it's more difficult to be broken. So here I have a measuring cylinder, also of 500 milliliters. I don't know if you can see it. I put it, but it's 500. So the content of this liquid is just tap water with some food colorant, just to make it easy to see to the students that are at the end of the classroom. So I will put this colored water until it rises the height of 500 milliliters in the beaker. So you can see here, at this moment, the students are already astonished because they don't expect that this sediment can contain as much water as you can see here. So how much water did I put here? I don't know if you are able to see, but this is 500, 400, 300, less than 300. So I have put more or less 240 milliliters. That makes about a porosity of about 48%, because it's not 1 liter but half a liter. So this is really astonishing for the students. It allows them to practice with maths and to calculate percentages. They can also read the meniscus of the liquid in a measuring cylinder or in a beaker, and allows us teachers to introduce concepts like porosity, and then later concepts like permeability and how this can be used to extract water, gas, or oil from the porous rocks. So this is a very simple experiment, and the materials are very easy to find, and it's very effective for the students to understand this. So I will stop here, and I pass the word to Gina, just for her to show you how the Himalayas formed some million years ago.
Okay, so go back again to Himalayas Mountain. So we have the box, we have some layers of sand and the flour, and we have a piece of wood to push the material. When we push the material, the layers will form some folds and some folders, so we can discuss with students about the compression forces and the formation of mountains of faults, reverse faults because of compression forces and the forms. So this is a very simple activity. Students always enjoy this activity, and we can modeling the formation of mountains using compressive forces. So I don't know if you have any question. Sorry for the internet, my loss of connection of internet, and if you need any explanation.
And I have a question or two, but if anyone else has any questions, don't let me like jump in and go first. Does anyone else have any questions they want to ask? Okay, while waiting, I'll start asking, but if anyone else has questions, please jump in. So Gina, I love that demonstration, and I've done something similar, but one of the problems I've often had in my own school is once the layers get mixed up, like once you do the demonstration, you can't easily get it flat or separated again. And so what a lot of teachers end up doing is throwing out all the materials that they use to make it in the first place because it's difficult to separate.
It's impossible to separate.
Okay, like I had a similar discussion with an exhibit developer at the Exploratorium a couple of years ago. And we were trying to brainstorm a way that they could do something similar to that on the museum floor and have it like self-resetting without human intervention. And we couldn't come up with a simple way to do it. 2 or 3 of the things that we thought of that like were just impractical would be if you use significantly different sized particles. So flour is very fine, so maybe you could sieve it apart. But like, as far as you know, there's no miracle solution. You're probably going to end up throwing out a lot of materials.
We have one trigger. We use flour just here, a fine layer of flour, just this side. The other side, you don't have flour. So, just as you can see, we just need to leave away this part of the sand, right?
Okay, that's a great trick to use less material. And it sounded like someone else was jumping on, maybe root you were jumping on?
Yes. I can say that I try with towels. You know, towels with different colors.
Yes.
And so the kids put the different towels, and then they move with their hand the towels. It's not the same, but because I've done this in a science fair and I couldn't do this so many times and I use so much material, so I use towels with different colors.
There's another earth learning activity, a learning idea activity with a card. I will try to explain. You can find it. There's a card, and there's also a piece of wood which represents one continent, and another piece of wood that represents another continent. There's a hole in the cardboard inside, and there are 3 or 4 nappies of different colors. And then if you pull from below the cardboard, this continent approaches to this one and folds this nappies. I'm saying the right word. Nappies is okay, and it's also a very simple, and you can make it work as much times as you want until some of the nappies breaks, but it's very inexpensive. The material is also very inexpensive. You only need a cardboard, 2 pieces of wood, the nappies, and some staples to fix the nappies among them. So you can find it also in the earth learning idea.
Yeah. Any questions?
I will share the image that I have with the towels, okay, that I found. It's not the same that I had, but for you getting some idea, okay, yeah. I will share here.
And this is one of the things I love about these experiment shares, that often someone has experience and they can give other ideas that piggyback on other ones. So it's great having everyone contributing their part. One question I had about the porosity one, and I was thinking of it with the packing problem, like how many spheres can you get into a certain space? And one thing I'm assuming, and you can either correct me or like agree with me on this, but I'm assuming it would be independent of the size of the spheres, which for me, like visually seems really surprising, because if I had small glass beads or like small ball bearings, I would think there would be less air. No. But the math would work out, it should be the exact same proportion, right?
Yeah, the porosity depends not on the size of the particles. It's the same, the proportion between solid and gas, but of the sorting of the particles. If I ask my students, what do you think that will be more porous? A well-sorted rock with particles of the same size, or a poorly sorted rock with or sediment with particles of different size? They always think that the poorly sorted will be more porous, but it's not true, because if you start with particles this size and then you put particles smaller bit in the spaces and then particles even smaller, you find that the porosity is decreasing every time you mix different sizes. So the porosity depends mainly on the sorting, on the size, the relative size of all the particles that are in the sediment.
Does that apply equally for rock and like sand or other sedimentary layers?
Yes. A sandstone is just a sand with some crystals in that make the porosity decrease, because they crystallize. These crystals that make a sediment, sand, to become a rock, sandstone, fill the gaps between the particles of the sediment. So with the same size of the particles, a sand is more porous than a poorly cemented sandstone, and a poorly cemented sandstone is more porous than a strongly cemented sandstone, because as much cement you put between the grains, the porosity decreases. So this is...
And I guess intuitively that kind of makes sense. Huh. Does anyone else have more questions?
If not, we can move to Guillaume, part of this presentation. He will show you 2 experiments about ice cores. So I will share my screen. And can you see my screen? Yes, I can see.
Yeah, I can see.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, the next 2 experiments will be about isotope. We heard a lot about global climate change and global warming. And we know that one argument is about the isotope and the ratio we can find in cores or ice core. So for that, for the materials, we need a few bags of sweets divided in different colors, some plastic cups, and also some papers. You can see in the next slide. Yeah, as you can see in the plastic glasses, you can see some sweets. I will choose some colored one and some paler one. The colored one will be the isotope oxygen 18. It will be the molecules of water, and the paler one will be with the oxygen 16. And we'll try to see what will be the difference in the ratio of these two isotopes according the climate. And after, we'll try to understand in the second experiment why it's different ratio. We'll use also some disc of paper to separate the different glasses. So like that, we can see the different layers. Like when you see rocks, you can see different layers. And in these different layers, you have a different ratios. So for that, we can ask a question for students. We can show them some different ratios and ask them if the climate was warm or cold. For that, they have to know that less oxygen 18 contains in a layer, the cooler Earth temperature will be if we are in the ice core. But if we see some deep sea sediment core, that will be the opposite. If we have a lot of oxygen 18, means that the Earth will be cooler at this time, and the opposite. For that, we have an experiment, will be more like a demonstration with some sweets. So as I said before, the sweets, the black sweets will be the molecule of water with the oxygen 18, so the heaviest one, and the yellow one will be the paler sweets with molecules of water, the oxygen 16. We have a first layer, mainly with the dark sweets. Now I did the opposite to make contrast and to make the students try to understand. So mainly we have more 16. And as it's written at the back, we are in the ice core. And a third layer with mainly black. Yeah. So now we are asking in a graph, its Earth was warmer or cooler. So for the first one, it will have been warmer because we can see more oxygen 18. After it will be cooler, and after warmer. It's for the ice core. Now, if we see on the deep sea sediment core, that will be the opposite. We have the same layer, but we are not at the same place. We are at the bottom of the ocean. And now it will be the opposite. It will be cooler, warmer, and cooler. It's quite difficult to understand, so we'll make a second experiment to show them, because for isotope, it will be the level of high school. It's something with isotope that the kids don't really understand. And for the second experiment, we'll demonstrate that also with sweets. So we still need the same sweets. We need this time 3 plastic containers, a tray, and labels. So you can see on this picture, you have the tropical ocean on the left side. On the right side, you have the polar ice part. And in the middle, on the layer, you have the atmosphere. And we'll be able to see what will make the evaporation and what will happen. Still the same. The darker sweets will be the oxygen 18 and 16 for the paler sweets, for molecules of water containing the oxygen 16. And there is 2 possibilities. Earth will be warm or Earth will be cold. So for first experiment, Earth will be warm. So what's happening? We'll have evaporation, and when we have evaporation, you have the molecules of water from the ocean who go to the atmosphere. And if it's warm, the molecule containing oxygen 18 will not have a lot of difficulties to evaporate. And after it will be condensation, it's going to rain at one stage. And if we go in the higher latitude, you have some ice, and now you see a ratio between the dark and the paler isotope. Sweets represent isotope. Now, second run will be in a cooler Earth during a glacial period. It will be more difficult for oxygen 18 to evaporate. And it will be easier for oxygen 18 to condensate. So we'll see more dark sweets in the ocean. On the ice part, we can see there is one black at the back, but mainly some oxygen 16. So by this experiment, which is more a demonstration, you can see concretely what's happening with the molecules of water. And you have evaporation, and you can see that you can find some isotope in the on the ocean core, on the ice core. So we will still have the same number of oxygen 18 or 16 on Earth, but the repartition and will not be climate. And if the Earth will be warmer or cooler, have a different ratio. And according to this ratio, we can see the climate in the past. And with that, we can understand why Earth was warmer or cooler in the past periods. So basically, you don't need a lot. You need sweets, you need some labels, some trays, and by that, some students can understand some physics, geophysics notions. Yeah, thank you, Aya. And yeah, just a reminder, here you can find our email address. If you would like a workshop in your country, if you want to contact us in your language, if you're Spanish and you want to speak directly with Javier, you can find Spain and the email address for France with me or another country, and we'll be happy to help you. We can also travel in the country to help you to make some workshop and to provide also some materials. Yeah, basically that's it. So if you have any question.
That's excellent. And I know for me, I had known that isotopes were used in ice cores, but I'd never learned like why the concentration of oxygen 18 was different. So that's definitely something new that I learned and that I'm going to be eager to pass on to students. Does anyone else have feedback or questions? And I have a question because I'm embarrassed I didn't know about this before, but I'm eager to take you up on the offer for workshops. So I'll contact you more later on that. But just wondering, what are the minimum and maximum number of participants? And like, do you often do it at a school level, or does it need to be something that's regional, or like, what kind of participation are you looking for to make it worth your while?
Our workshops are intended to be preferred for teachers, primary and secondary teachers. The minimum number just for us to go to run a workshop is 7, but the ideal number would be around 15 teachers. We offer workshops that last from 2 to 3 hours typically, and they can be a mix of different areas like we have done today here, or they can have a topic, and we can focus only providing, for example, 15 or 20 activities about plate tectonics, or about seismology, or about resources and risks, and whatever. It's it's like a la carte. We can offer our workshops, and they are completely for free. We travel, we bring our materials, and we run our workshops completely for free.
That sounds really great. I definitely will take you guys up on that. And Guillaume, you're in France, so I'll email you and coordinate things by email then. But that's perfect. And I hope other people on this experiment share are also eager to make use of your resources and of your workshops.
Yeah, with pleasure. And I realized that Javier can speak French, so perfect.
And I can speak Spanish as well, but a lot of my colleagues in France can't. So I'll probably hit you up, Guillaume.
With pleasure.
Are there any other questions or feedback for them before we move on to Renée-Claude in Canada? And I'll be doing a synchronized experiment or two with her when we switch things over. Any questions for the field officers before we switch over to Canada?
Just one last remember, and don't forget that the team, the field officers team, will be largely increased in next month. So we will have colleagues around in other countries from Europe. So you can find all information in the EGU website.
Oh, and another question related to that. If you already explained it, I missed it and I'm sorry, but teachers who are in a country that doesn't have a field officer, can they still contact you like for an online workshop? And in which case, which of you would they contact?
The best they can do is to apply to become a field officer for the next year, so they can run workshops in their countries.
But if they don't feel comfortable, they can email one of us, and we are always in contact. And probably if I don't know if it's in a country with a language that we can't speak, we'll do in English. And if it's possible for them in English, we can try in English.
And a similar question, but this is something probably best to follow up on more individually, is whether you guys would be interested in me trying to connect you either with people at Science on Stage or Scientix. I'm a Scientix ambassador and on Team France for Science on Stage, and they both do great webinars. If you'd be interested in things online that would reach a number of teachers around Europe, is that something you'd be interested in me connecting you guys with, or are you already connected with people there?
Yeah, we could run. In fact, during the pandemic, we have run a lot of online workshops for the Philippines, for Greece, for so different countries, always in English in this case.
So we are open, yeah.
Excellent. That's very good. I'm very glad to now know more about what you guys do. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so now to finish up, we'll be going over to Canada, and I'll introduce Renée-Claude. So a lot of you probably know that I'm originally Canadian. Now I'm also French, and I met Renée-Claude back in 2017. And she was one of the most encouraging and enthusiastic people when I first started my favorite experiments, which the experiment shares are kind of like an online version of that, but I've tried to go to as many different countries as possible, meeting teachers, gathering ideas. Especially at the beginning, a lot of people were surprised by the idea, didn't really know what I was doing. And I got pretty down about things. So meeting Renée-Claude and looking forward to meeting her at the Canada Agriculture and Food Museum was one of the things that kept me optimistic about the project and kept me going for that. So I'm really thrilled to have her on for some soil experiments. And I actually went back there and spent, was it 2 or 3 weeks in 2018?
I think it was 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we worked on a couple of videos, which we're going to share a little bit of today as well. Renée-Claude, can you remind me the order of things? Are we doing something together? Or am I switching things fully? Well, I should at least let you introduce yourself rather than just me talking. Right?
Yeah, I mean, so we've got two very quick soil-related activities. So as Michael mentioned, my name is Renée-Claude. I'm the science advisor at the Agriculture and Food Museum. So a lot of my work is trying to infuse more science and more scientific experiments in our programming. We are a historical site, but also a science museum. So we're a national agriculture and food museum looking at the science and innovation of agriculture and food, how we got to where we are now and looking beyond as well. We have a big focus on sustainability, and soil science has been one of our main files for the last couple of years. So Michael worked with me on some of the videos. I'm not sure if we wanted to keep those for the end or.
Do we want to show them now?
We can probably go show those at the end.
Okay, yeah.
Go with the experiments now. So Michael, you had your materials ready for our experiments in tandem.
Yeah. So for the drop test and the splash test and the jar test, and I'm going to add my spotlight too, so we can see the materials.
Okay, great. So this actually fits really well with Xavier's porosity experiment. So I could see that experiment being tacked on with this. Soil porosity is very important for sustainability, for productive agriculture. It influences drainage, water holding capacity. It influences root growth, and spaces in the soil provide like areas for living things to live. And all of that soil microbiome, all of the insects, small arthropods, small microorganisms, protozoa, the whole gamut, bacteria, they need air spaces to live on in the soil. And soil porosity is a function of compaction, so how squished the soil is, but also of the components that make up soil. And as we may or may not know, soil is different all around the world. There's different soil types everywhere, and plants will prefer to grow in a sandy loam type of soil. So how can we test our soils and to separate those different layers, those different components, those different sized particles, to examine the porosity of our soil? So I'm going to show you a really quick experiment that only requires a glass jar or a clear container, about half full of water. So do you have your container ready, Michael?
Yes, I just need to, so it starts with the water. I was going to add water and I had the soil, but okay, so
you can add the water after, it's fine. Perfect. And so we need our soil sample as well. So I took some from our garden here at the museum. This works really well if you can take multiple samples and compare them. So we're going to take our soil. I'm going to add a little, like about a cup of soil. It can vary. So Michael, do you have your soil?
Yeah. And a
okay.
cup sounds like a very non-metric measurement. So for anyone using metric, the volume would be about 250 ml.
That's right. Yeah, about 250 milliliters is good. So really proportional to the size of the jar, and you'll see when I show the results. So you'll just just pour that soil in. You still want some water. So you don't want it to become mud. You want some water to still be able to shake around. So it's very dark right now. It really just looks black. We're going to put our lid on and shake. Okay. So everything is really well, make sure it's really well shaped. So all of the different sizes of particles are well distributed in the water, and quickly turn it over and let it sit. So now for this part here, we're just letting it sit. It's very dark in here, so you won't get the full effect. I have prepared a version ahead of time to show you how that's going to look. So right now, everything is still in suspension. So soil is made up of 3 different size particles. which have different properties. So we have sand, silt, and clay. Sand being the heaviest will sink first, followed by silt and then clay. It will take a while before all of the particles precipitate, but once they do, we'll have very distinct layers we'll be able to measure to determine the composition of our soil. So how much sand, how much silt, how much clay, and then infer also the porosity. So a soil that is very high in silt and low in sand is made up of very small particles. So a sandy soil that has a lot of silt will be less porous than just a sandy soil. So I'm just going to show you one I prepared earlier. Oh, it's still not very, light it up with my flashlight. That's what I'm going to do. Okay. So you can see here, I'm lighting it up and you can see that it has started to form some layers. I'm trying to put it. So we can see that there's starting to be some distinct layers, the sand being at the bottom, and then the top layers being our silt and clay. But the water is still quite cloudy, and this is the clay and small particles of silt that are still in suspension. So I had one in my office from when Michael was here. And we did this experiment and we did a video back then. And this actually has been sitting in my office for the last 3 years. And you can see these layers a little bit better. Now that everything has precipitated out of the water, you can see a very small layer of clay and a small layer of silt and sand. So this here was one of our 3 tests. And you can also see organic matter floating at the surface. Now, one of the very interesting things is that it has been sitting around so long that the bacteria and the microbial life that was in the soil have gone anaerobic. So they're working now without oxygen and they're creating some gases. So this one isn't doing it very much, but 2 of my other samples, as soon as I touch them, all of these bubbles of gas are bubbling up. And so that's an interesting way also to show respiration, even in an environment without oxygen, just kind of letting biologically rich substance sit in the water. So we've got a lot of methane production in the other jars. So this here is just one way to quickly test our soil. The next one is the snake test. And for this one, you just take a little bit of soil in your hands, like so. And then it's about adding a little bit of water and mixing it up until it is just moistened. So we want it to be a little bit like cake. So I'm getting my hands nice and dirty here. So students love doing this. So my little soil ball now is not too wet, not too dry. The next step is to squeeze it between our fingers and let it, I'm trying to get the right angle, let it make a little snake. Now, my snake is breaking right away. So that means that it is a soil that has a high amount of sand. If my little snake was going to stick together very long, that means it's a clay-based soil. So we can look at the composition of soil simply by texture. And another part of this experiment is simply to take a little bit in your hand, add more water. This time we want to make a very watery kind of mud, and just rub around and feel it. If it feels very gritty, again, we have a soil that is very sandy. If it feels very smooth and soft, it is likely we have a higher amount of silt and clay in there. So I find this is a really good complement to the porosity with the beads, because then we can look at how that works in the real world. So how's your soil jar test looking, Michael?
It's, oh yeah, well, not so many layers. I'm just gonna share my spotlight too, so people can see mine next year's as well. I'd stopped that because I wasn't doing the snake test. So this is actually, I find it rather unusual in that I have a layer that's still floating on top of the water and doesn't look like it'll want to settle anytime soon. Like it's not just suspended, it's actually floating. And it's like relatively fresh organic material. Like from last year, this is just from a flower pot on my balcony where I stirred it around with some coffee grounds, some other stuff before planting things this year. And I'm surprised how much it's floating. There's even like some seeds in the top.
Very interesting. So knowing that our organic matter is the only stuff that floats, then that's indicating that you have a very a soil that's very rich in undecomposed organic matter. And organic matter eventually, you know, becomes compost. And I can see that, yeah, so there might not be a lot of layers. So that's a very organic. So you have a very plant-based soil, let's say. Good. So just the last little quick experiment that we can do, and this one has more to do with soil erosion. And soil erosion is a big problem in agriculture and just in cities all over the world. We have a hard time holding our soil where it's supposed to be. Soil that gets washed away ends up in waterways, which goes into the ocean. So we're losing our topsoil. And that's bad news because topsoil isn't created very quickly. It's made from weathering of rocks, decomposition of organic material. So this quick little experiment, I'm just going to turn my computer over. Oh, that didn't really work. Okay, so I'll show you this way here. So this is a way that we can look at splash erosion. So erosion caused by rain. And as you can see, I have a large sheet of paper with a little bit of soil in the middle, and I made a nice big target on here. The next thing that I'm going to do is I have some water here and a pipette. So I'll suck up some water into the bulb. Let me just hold my computer up again so you can see. I will hold the pipette a few, almost a meter above my page. This and drop some water as though it's raining. So we want to drop water and we want it to land in the middle of the target. And the purpose here, so you can try different heights, different pressures. And the idea, if your soil is dry enough, my soil is quite wet, so it's absorbing it. But if your soil is dry enough, you'll notice that the rain is making particles fly further into the target. So this is just a quick experiment that students can do and get a sense of what's happening, like why uncovered soil when it's raining is very vulnerable to erosion. So we use this here to help people understand why cover crops in agriculture and mulches are very helpful for sustainable farming, because it prevents erosion by preventing the splash of the soil preventing the soil from splashing when it gets hit by rain. So students can measure how far the soil has splashed. Another topic that can be explored with this experiment is the idea of plant diseases, because diseases that affect plants are often in the soil, in bacterial infections, fungal infections, and often they're spread to plants by soil splashing on them. So having a covered soil that doesn't splash can prevent diseases in plants by preventing the transmission of disease from soil to plant material. So this little experiment can kind of help show that, you know, soil is very vulnerable to being eroded, being splashed away, and then we can repeat the experiment with a piece of soil with grass, or we could even put wood chips or dry leaves on top and repeat to see how that can help reduce the impact of rain erosion. So that's my three little experiments I wanted to show. They're quick things that we do here with our visitors to talk about soil, get their curiosity going, and get them thinking about something that they might not think about very often.
That's awesome. Are there any questions for Renée-Claude about any of these activities? And I think there's a lot of stuff on the museum website as well for people who want to look at more of the resources you guys have, right?
That's right. So the Canada Agriculture and Food Museum website has a whole section for educational programs. So we have try this out activities. We have online virtual school programs that I believe we only offer in Canada at the moment, but we also have educational activity kits. So those are lesson plans for teaching agricultural topics in the classroom for all grades. So in Canada, from junior kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. So not sure how that translates, but all age groups, basically. We have things on genetics, we have things on sustainable agriculture, and some that are more themed, like looking at pumpkins or apples and products like that.
And I'll send out a link when I send out the recording of the session as well for anyone who wants to check out those resources more. And an interesting thing to note, because it's nationally, something at the national level in Canada, everything's available equally in French and English. So anyone who's interested in French language resources, absolutely everything produced there is in both languages, which was at times a bit of a pain when we were making the videos, and we didn't think that in when we were first recording something, but easy enough to fix afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I forgot to mention that.
There's people from 12 different countries here, and I think France and Canada are the only two where they speak French. So it's not extremely relevant to most people here, but like it might come up as useful for someone. So yeah, we're putting that out there. And I'll show the vermicompost one that we made while we were there.
Yeah, so I can briefly just explain context at the museum. As part of our soil initiative, we like to also talk about compost and the decomposition of organic matter. But we have
just to ask while you're explaining it, should I have it play in the background, or do you want to finish explaining before we have it?
Oh, well, you can play it now. Yeah, so this is actually a time lapse we did in one of our vermicompost bins. So we have several worm colonies at the museum who decompose our food and make vermicast, which is a form of compost. Worms aren't, you can see them appearing and eating the apple there. So worms aren't actually alone in the vermicompost bin. There's a lot of mites and other small organisms that all take part in decomposing food into compost. So the little black dots we can see scurrying over the apple that is rapidly disappearing are mites. So this was 18 days, Michael. I don't quite remember how long we had it going.
I think it was a bit shorter than that, especially if I was only there 2 weeks. That's
true. It would have been 10 days then.
Yeah, it wasn't the first day we set it up. I think this was probably about 10 days, and other ones we did for a bit less than that. And this one was one we had actually set up in your office, and it was almost like the backup one, but it was the one we ended. Oh, that's the next video automatically queued. We'll get to that in just a second, but yeah, we had taken a lot of time lapse of a lot of different things composting, and I remember that one we got in after a weekend, and it was my second last day there. And we figured we need to take the camera off, check things. And we were amazed by it. And we just loved that video when we saw it. So hopefully everyone watching got something out of that one.
It's really quite amazing to actually see the worms doing the work, because, you know, I've experienced it putting an apple, looking again a week after and it's gone, but actually seeing the worms consume it and seeing it disappearing was amazing. So this is something that you could set up in your own classroom, for example. We just used a GoPro and it was taking a photo every minute, I think. We had it plugged into the wall.
And should we explain the manure cycle one as well? For the
Sure. So
should we
right,
do that while it's going too, and I'll turn the music?
Sure, yeah, you can
down?
play it and I'll explain it. So we, as well as being a museum, we are a functioning farm. We have Holstein cows. We actually have seven different breeds of cows. This is them that you see. And we made this video to show how nutrients cycle around the farm. So here we see our cows eating their corn. This is corn silage. It's corn that's chopped up, the whole plant, and put into the silo to ferment. So these cows are having lunch. And then, well, we move on to the next part. What comes in must come out. And this is a question we get often at the museum. What do you do with all the animal poop? Well, we recycle it. So this was a first cut. We made one that was a little bit less, and that's me shoveling the manure. So we made a second cut that's maybe a little less intense. So our farmers, then they sweep the manure up into this conveyor here.
And just a side note, that this is how I sometimes spend my summer vacation.
So now the manure is coming out of the barn and being scraped into a trailer. So this again is all at the museum. We have heritage barns. So these barns are over 100 years old, which is old in Canada. That manure gets picked up. And then we have a composting facility at the museum on the farm. So here it is. We followed it. So then we could film the compost piles. So all that manure ends up in nice big piles that then these get turned every couple of days so that the temperature stays warm and the bacteria can do their job. Once the compost is finished, it's added back into the fields to grow some corn. We're missing the harvest part, but corn is harvested.
Oh, this isn't the cut where I added it in.
No, I thought it was. It's the wrong version.
Okay, yeah, because a month after I was there, I was biking across northern Italy and I saw them harvesting corn, and I thought, that's the one shot we were missing. So I sent it to Renée-Claude and we added it in, but I guess we missed
Yeah,
that.
I think I pulled up the wrong version of the video. I apologize. But this video.
It's okay. It's just one shot of a combine harvesting corn. It's not that big of a deal.
And then our cows get fed that corn that was grown using their poop. And then we're back at the start of our cycle. So we made this video just to kind of help people kind of get a sense of how nutrients cycle around the farm and how on farms we do every effort possible to recycle, to reduce, reuse, and recycle so that we don't need to rely on so much synthetic fertilizers or mine fertilizers. So that is it for me.
And it's getting late, so we're drawing near the end. If I've missed anyone inadvertently, let me know, but I think I'm ready to start concluding. Is there anyone who I missed who was expecting on me to call in? Like Gordana was here, but then she disconnected. She's not, no, she doesn't appear to be back. So I have one last short thing. It's a sonification of the Keeling curve. So I'm going to play that in the background as I explain kind of what it is. So some of you might be familiar with the Keeling curve. Yeah, you should be able to hear quietly. Oh, so some music coming in the background here. And this, what I've done is I've just transformed the monthly carbon dioxide concentration at Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii over the course of 2 or 3 decades. So you can hear the monthly average over a yearly cycle goes up and down, but we have the level go higher and higher and higher. So often when talking about issues that relate to the Earth, and it gets annoyingly high, just like the carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere gets annoyingly high. So I wanted to finish off with that quick sonification to finish off the Earth Day experiment share. So with that being said, unless people have other questions or announcements that they want to make. And if you do, please cut me off to let me know. I want to thank everyone for joining us and everyone who shared something. Just to mention, looking through the list of participants, even though it's not a huge crowd, I think I counted 12 different countries, maybe 13 people are coming from. Feel free if I've gotten things wrong, but I think we have at least one person from each of the following: Portugal, France, Albania, Canada, Greece, Spain, Croatia, Ireland, Serbia, Germany, Lithuania, and Romania. If I've missed anyone, please add that or correct it, but it's pretty amazing to be able to sit around from the comfort of my own home and see experiments from all those. Oh, USA. Oh, but Brenna, you're in Paris right now. She's one of my colleagues from my school.
I wasn't sure if that, I was like country of origin or country we're living in. Okay.
Oh, feel free to count it for both. So we can be up to 14 countries then if we want to count it that way. So it's been great having so many people around. I hope a number of you will join for the next experiment share. As I've explained a number of times before, but some people are new, so it's worth explaining things again. It's going to be a silent experiment share. So anyone presenting an experiment will be asked to do so either without their microphone on or at least without using their voice at all. And one of the reasons for this is to try and level the playing field with people who either aren't native English speakers or who aren't as comfortable presenting experiments in English, but also to make it so those of us who are comfortable in English, we go through the same discomfort of not being able to find words for what we're doing because we won't be able to use any words. I'm sure I'll present things with words to say who's going next and things like that. So it won't be that the whole thing will be silent, but at least while you're presenting the body of your experiment, I'm going to ask you to do that quietly. So hopefully we encourage more people to share things. And as I've mentioned a couple of times before, it's also a great training exercise to work on your nonverbal communication for students, or to think about what could I be doing differently to make this more clear to more of my learners. And it's something I often coach mainly students to try out when they're trying new experiments. So that one, I'd ask people signing up for this one, their preference for the date. It ended up being almost equal with Monday, May 9th at 6 o'clock, winning out just slightly. So I'm confirming it'll be at that time, and I'll send out an email and an invitation to sign up for that. Hopefully, I see a bunch of you there. Does anyone have any last things to say before I conclude and everyone goes on to whatever else they were going to do on this wonderful evening or afternoon?
Can I just ask, where can I find the recorder of this one and the last one?
So I'll send out a link to it. You can find them all as well on my YouTube channel, and there's an experiment share playlist there. My YouTube channel, I'll add a link to the chat, but it's www.myfavoriteexperiments. No, it's youtube.com/myfavoriteexperiments. I'm not great at typing and writing things at the same time. But also the last one, I'm really sorry it's not online yet. So you were in that one as well. I intended on getting that online the very next day, but one of the things that slowed things down, we'd done a number of synchronized experiments, which I didn't realize that when you spotlight two screens, it still only records one of them. And I really want to include some of them side by side. So I've been going through the gallery to pick the image of one of us, and that took longer than I expected, and I've been pretty busy. So that one, schools in Paris are on vacation from the end of tomorrow onwards. So I'll have plenty of time, and the recording for that one should be online within a couple of days. And this one probably a lot quicker because I'll have fewer things than usual distracting me. But I'll also send out a link to everyone who registered. Excellent question. Any other final questions? Okay, so with that, thank you again to everyone. I hope you join us again on May 9th, and have a great evening or afternoon. Thank you again, and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.